and offered to help us with our spiritual development. They demanded that we dismantle and destroy our nuclear weapons as the major condition. They refused to exchange technology, citing that we were spiritually unable to handle the technology which we then possessed. They believed that we would use any new technology to destroy each other. This race stated that we were on a path of self-destruction and we must stop killing each other, stop polluting the earth, stop raping the earth's natural resources, and learn to live in harmony. These terms were met with extreme suspicion, especially the major condition of nuclear disarmament. It was believed that meeting that condition would leave us helpless in the face of an obvious alien threat. We also had nothing in history to help with the decision. Nuclear disarmament was not considered to be in the best interests of the United States. The overtures were rejected.
Well, now keep in mind, there's another piece of the puzzle I have to throw in here. Eisenhower and almost all of his cabinet, especially Nelson Rockefeller, were members of the Council on Foreign Relations, or the CFR. That's an inbred elitist organization dedicated to making the world's decisions for them and then manufacturing consent to carry them out. Now, this wouldn't be manufacturing consent. I can see this as being a logical, maybe maneuver by a government, although it is cheap and underhanded. But what this organization means by manufacturing consent isn't a public open debate and then weighing the pros and cons. No, they make this decision and then they attack the opposition. They discredit the opposition, and since now they control all the media, they don't even allow the opposition to a voice. So this organization marginalizes dissenters and eliminates any other position is theirs for an option. Let's look a little more closely at the CFR.
The year is 1917, and Representative Oscar Callaway enters a disturbing statement into the U.S. congressional record. The statement reveals why J.P. Morgan interests hired 12 high-ranking news managers. The 12 were asked to determine the most influential newspapers in America. They were to figure out how many news organizations it would take to control generally the policy of the daily press of the United States. The 12 found it was only necessary to purchase the control of 25 of the greatest papers. An agreement was reached. The policy of the papers was bought, and an editor was placed at each paper to ensure that all published information was in keeping with the new policy. Soon, that policy would be defined by a front group formed by J.P. Morgan and his colleagues. In fact, Morgan's personal attorney was founding president of the organization, the Council on Foreign Relations. Today, the CFR maintains that its goal is to increase America's understanding of the world. However, the actual objective of this highly exclusive club is revealed by the rare admissions of the insiders themselves. In the early 60s, a Georgetown University professor collects information for a book favorable to the network of powerful men who founded the CFR. For 2 years, Professor Carroll Quigley is allowed to examine the confidential papers and secret records of this network. Quigley reveals that these men aim to create a world system of financial control in private hands, able to dominate the political system of each country and the economy of the world as a whole. In short, they seek total and quiet control of the entire world. And the CFR is their most visible conduit for carrying out that agenda. CFR members include America's wealthiest tycoons, as well as the highly placed elite in government, academic institutions, tax-exempt foundations, and the establishment media. Ruling Class Journalists, written by Richard Harwood, describes the CFR membership as the ruling establishment in the United States. The Washington Post article boasted that news reporters who are CFR members do not merely analyze and interpret foreign policy for the United States, they help make it. Who are these policymakers? Many of their faces are familiar. NBC's Tom Brokaw, CBS's Dan Rather, ABC's Barbara Walters, Jim Lehrer of PBS, William F. Buckley of National Review, media mogul Rupert Murdoch, owner of the giant multifaceted News Corporation. These media heavyweights, and many others like them, are members of the CFR. Powerful corporations are also invited to become members. At the close of the 20th century, CFR influence presided over far-reaching consolidations of media control. In 1995, CFR members Michael Eisner of Disney and ABC's Thomas Murphy merged their media empires. Soon after the merger, the Disney-ABC empire becomes a CFR corporate member. In the year 2000, the world's largest internet service provider, America Online, joins forces with Time Warner, one of the world's largest news organizations. The CEOs favoring the move are CNN's Thomas Johnson and Time Warner's Gerald Levin, both CFR members. Once again, another media giant is created under the shadow of CFR influence. Today, an elite handful of individuals define the agendas that are supported by the empire of establishment news.
Well, in my opinion, this is an incredibly evil organization, mastering over us, slaving humanity. And you know what their symbol is on their flag? Is a man riding a pale horse. And the reason that it's a pale horse is because pale horse is mentioned in the last book of the New Testament. Remember, there were the 4 horsemen of the apocalypse? Well, one of them rode a pale horse, and the pale horse represents conquest and pestilence. So I guess that's what they're saying for. I think they really embody that. Well, that these extraterrestrials came and they met with these high-ranking officials, all connected to these secret organizations like the Bilderberg and the CFR. They were actually talking to the right people, because these are the people that really have control over all the nuclear weapons. They have control over all what pollutes the planet. You know, they're the oil barons. They're the ones that keep secret technology from us. So they could stop it. They also control wars. I remember a quote from Madame Rothschild many, many years ago saying that if my sons didn't want wars, there would not be wars. So they contacted the right people. We can't say that they, you know, these aliens went to people that couldn't have controlled this. And they could have controlled this. But because of their crazy wanting to control and their absolutely not wanting to give up their nuclear weapons, we might have lost an incredible opportunity to spiritually develop.
Okay, I think it's time we summed up. So, in this show, we first talked about James Forrestal and how he was gaslighted and killed because of the alien problem. We talked about how we're all being gaslighted, or were, if we aren't still, on the very same subject. We introduced you to a war hero, patriot, and martyr, your friend and ours, Bill Cooper. From his book, The Secret Government, we began to see what was going on while we were fooled, tricked, bamboozled, discredited, shut up, and frustrated by Operation Blue Book. We looked at the number and type of alien crafts that crashed in the US and throughout the world. We learned that some crafts contain human body parts.
Oh, gee.
They also captured aliens, one in particular named EBE, whom they studied for years. We learned that the CIA and the NSA were created because of the alien problem. We learned why the Bilderberg Group was created. We looked at how Eisenhower handled more crashes, and a meeting with human-like aliens offering to help us with our spiritual development if we gave up our nukes, but he said no. We also learned that most of the Eisenhower administration were CFR members, and what their purpose is, and why they would have, of course, said no.
Yeah, it kind of gives us a look at what was going on behind the scenes. It's kind of like while we slept. You know, while we were watching 1950s TV, and I remember professional wrestling, Howdy Doody. You know, and the world was sane and rational, and we didn't realize we were being gaslighted, bamboozled, kept out of the loop, while all this other stuff is going on. Meantime, these inbred elite control freaks are running around getting down technology, capturing aliens, having meetings with aliens. I mean, when I heard that, it just blew my mind. That's a big jump for me.
Yeah.
That back in the 50s, actually, Laura Magdalene Eisenhower, who's the granddaughter of Ike Eisenhower, says that the contact started in the 30s, and that this was just the one that Bill Cooper knew about.
Yeah. Well, he had a really good inside look. I mean, with his background in the military, in the service, working, you know, under secret clearance or what, I forget what they call that. I mean, he really saw a lot of what was going on.
I had a secret clearance.
You did?
Yeah. To do the work I did. Yeah, he had secret clearance, and he was like a bulldog when it comes to finding stuff out. I mean, he would really go deep. And if you read his books or listen to his lectures, he gains a lot of credibility with me because he doesn't say anything he doesn't reference. I mean, in this podcast, to make it interesting, I left out every time he'd say memorandum, he'd have the number and the code of it. He knew how the whole thing worked together. And also in his books, most of the documentation is in the book. I think that a good 20% at the end is just documents that he had a hold of. Now, you know, you have to look and find out whether they're valid or not, but
They look real.
they look real to us.
Yeah.
And this stuff is so amazing.
Yeah, and you know, he died getting this information out to us. It's
Right.
a real shame. I mean, just think what more he could be uncovering
Oh, what he
if
could
he
be doing
was still
now.
here with
Yeah, no,
us.
he'd be a big problem. And also, we dipped our feet into the information on the Bilderberg Group, CFR, and in the next podcast, we're going to look at the Trilateral Commission. Now, these are the groups. You know, they talk about conspiracy theory. There's only one conspiracy, and these are 2 or 3 organizations that are high at the top, puppeteering everybody. So anyway.
Well, tune into next episode because there's a lot more that we want to share with you when we come back for the next hour. But meanwhile, thank you for joining in with us today, and be sure to go to our blog, pineconeutopia.yolasite.com, and click on the link for The World Beyond Belief, and you'll see show notes there, and you can look further into the information that we've been discussing over all these. all these
Mindy's been
podcasts.
really fastidious at documenting all the stuff and putting it on there.
So until next time, be nice to each other.